Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that is why you're lifting and you're just maintaining and not building more muscle. But first, before I do that, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Again, I appreciate everybody who listens, but want to continue to get this information out to more people. So if you think it would be helpful, please go and do that. And next, I have my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it. The link to that is in the show notes. And then I also have my free masterclass on nutrition periodization. Again, same thing, what it is, how to do it, how to set up each phase, common mistakes, adjustments you need to make, etc. And again, the link to that is in the show notes. And then lastly, if you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff HOEHN_, and that's where I'm most active on social media. And if you have any questions on this podcast or anything that pops up, again, that would be the place to go there. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So I want to phrase this as, if you're lifting weights, you're not going to be losing muscle, right? However, just because you are lifting weights does not mean you are building more muscle. So training to build more muscle looks different than training to maintain what you currently have. And I think people, this kind of takes, I think this can go in two different ways. So I think the first way is you're training, so you think you should be building more muscle, and that's not necessarily the case. But you also think that if you're not training optimally, you're also like losing muscle. And that's, again, not going to be the case, right? So again, there's two ways to look at this. So I want to start off with that there. But like I said, a lot of people end up training in a way that maintains what they have, and it just doesn't build more. And I think part of this just comes down to when you first start lifting, everything works. And then you think that you need to do that forever, or you basically you just go through the motions over time, whether that be you don't ever evolve your programming, you're like, oh, hey, this works, so I'm just going to always do that. Or again, you just go through the motions because it's like, hey, I just need to get to the gym. And again, that will work fine. And again, that's not bad. But if we're trying to continue to build more muscle, we need to be a little bit smarter with that. And I feel like this is where most of my clients end up coming to me at, right? Like they're training maybe not as consistently as they would like, but they aren't building any more muscle because of their approach. So again, we want to make sure that we get this nailed down. The first common thing I see here where you're training, you're lifting weights, but you may only be maintaining, is you're always trying to get leaner and not eating enough. So you never give your body enough energy to add more muscle. You're always trying to keep your lowest scale weight or drop more body fat 24/7, 365. And again, the issue here is initially, this can work, right? You can do both. You can be in a lower energy state and still build some muscle. But over time, as you build more muscle, as you get leaner, the likelihood of this happening dwindles down. And if you continue to try to do this where it's like, oh, hey, I just want to lose a little bit more. Hey, I just need to get a little bit leaner. You're never going to be in a good spot to continue to add muscle. You could be pushing your training as hard. You could have the best program in the world. But if we're always doing this, we're always trying to restrict and drop weight, you're not going to put your body in the best position to continue to build more muscle. This doesn't mean you need to be in this like massive calorie surplus, but we need to make sure that we're eating enough. If you're somebody who's always been this way and you've always tried to drop weight, just getting to your maintenance and putting together some good training phases and staying consistent with it is just going to do wonders from that perspective. Your body's just going to be in a much better position to add muscle at that point, right? So we want to make sure we be careful with this, always trying to get leaner and not eating enough. This also goes, again, this can be taken two ways. One, it's like you're always trying to drop weight, but then if you're not, then you just don't have any focus on your nutrition and you're just winging it and doing whatever. Again, I think both of those are mistakes, right? We want to have this period of time where we purposely fuel our body and we're still focused on good nutrition during that time. I think that's the big kind of piece there as well too, right? It's not just, oh, hey, I just can eat anything and everything I want, not focus on nutrition and I'll build muscle. Again, we do still want to have that period of time where we focus on that. So number two is not training hard enough consistently. You just go in and check the boxes too often. We don't have to go balls to the wall every training session, but chances are you don't push yourself enough regularly. Again, somebody could take this and, oh, hey, I need to just push it to the max every single time I go in. No, that's not the case. But if every time we go in, we're just going through the motions, just checking the boxes, again, I think that's going to be fine from maintaining your current muscle. But if we want to build more, again, we're going to have those stretches where we do push ourselves outside of our limit and get a little uncomfortable. Again, if we don't do that, probably not going to be building as much muscle as you would like from that perspective. So again, we want to make sure that we're training hard enough consistently. Again, not just training hard once every year, again, we want to do this consistently as well too, right? We want to make sure that effort is there regularly. And like I said, you're going to have some days where maybe you don't do as much, maybe you do a little bit less, but again, over time, we want to make sure that we are having those stretches where we are pushing ourselves. Number three, it could just be poor programming, right? So this is where, again, you start weight training and really anything works. So you don't necessarily really need to follow anything strict. But once you get to a certain point, it becomes more important to be smarter about your programming, how we go about it, right? This could be you do too much outside of weight training. Classic example would be maybe you're somebody who wants to drop weight. And so you're like, I need to do a ton of cardio. I need to do a ton of exercise outside of my weight training session. That's going to, the more you do that, and you're also in a low energy state, that's going to start to impact your body's ability to build more muscle. So again, you could be working hard in the gym, doing the right exercises, but again, what our programming looks like outside of our weight training is super important. Or you could be somebody who wants to have you either want to be like the strongest person where you do like a ton of 1 rep max training, or you're somebody who wants to be like a quote unquote hybrid athlete. Again, if you're off on that, that's going to be something that, is going to impact you. So what you do outside of weight training is going to be important. It could be poor exercise selection. So maybe you feel like you need to do certain exercises. And again, maybe that's not the greatest, or maybe you need to do certain modalities. Okay, you have to do barbell lifts. You can't do cables and free weight and machines because free weights are better for muscle growth. Again, that's not the case. And so if you're stuck in that, that's an issue, right? Or maybe you're just not picking super effective exercises, right? For what you're trying to do. Maybe you have too many redundant exercises, right? Where it's like you're doing different exercises, you're doing a lot, but you're just like doing the same exercise over and over again, right? It's just different variations of it. And then you're neglecting other ones, right? That could lead to injuries. It could just lead to underdevelopment of certain muscles, right? As more research comes out on exercise variety for muscle growth, I think it's important to make sure that you cover your bases. Actually, on my last episode, I went over basically everything you need to know about programming for muscle building. So again, I would definitely check out that last episode. Not the last episode, because the last one would be a guest episode, but the one before that, the one I released on Monday. Maybe you're doing too much volume. Maybe it's not enough volume. Maybe it's not enough volume for the intensity that you're putting in, or maybe it's too much volume for the intensity you're putting in, right? Maybe the rep ranges are off, right? Again, you could be working hard, but then to pass a certain point, if your programming is off, that's going to be something that is going to hold you back long term as well too, right? So making sure we get smarter with that. Next, we have no progressive overload. You don't have to progress every single time you go in, but if you're not tracking your exercises, if you're not tracking what you're doing and you don't ever really push yourself or get uncomfortable, you're probably going to end up doing the same thing and you're not really sending that signal to your body to build more muscle. Again, it's going to be fine for maintaining what you have, but to build more muscle, it's probably not going to be the best. So again, we want to make sure that we are utilizing progressive overload in our training as well too. Another one is you're worried about how many calories you are burning in your weight training sessions. Again, the goal of training to build muscle should be to send the stimulus to build more muscle. And so trying to burn the most calories is not going to do that. So if you're worried about that in your weight training sessions, you're probably going to miss out on adding muscle, right? So again, this is where whether you're somebody who just tries to do a ton of circuit type training just to increase your caloric burn, or you do say group classes, then this is where I see this kind of show up the most. We're worried about someone to lose body fat and build muscle. So I'm going to do both at the same time. So I'm going to lift weights, but I'm also going to increase my calorie burn. I want it to be tough. I want to get sweating. I want my heart rate to go up. Again, probably not the greatest from a muscle building standpoint. If you want to do some of that training, that's fine. Again, that means that your programming needs to be smarter from a weight training perspective and overall. But we also want to make sure that at least 50% of our training is outside of this type of training where you're trying to get your calorie burn high, right? Again, I don't think that this type of training, right, where it's you're doing circuits, you're just trying to get your heart rate up. I don't really see the benefit of that style of training. Again, people are probably going to have different views than me on that. But again, if we're trying to change our body composition, then, from a fat loss perspective, that's going to be, yes, through some activity, but it's not, okay, you need to do more intense workout. It's hey, let's make sure we get a good base of activity in per day. And then the rest is going to be your nutrition, right? You're going to have to get that dialed in. And then obviously we want to lift weights for the lean body mass perspective, right? That's what we need to focus on there. If you're somebody who wants to improve your cardiovascular endurance, again, I don't think this style of training is the best way to do it. I think because what's going to happen there is you're not really getting the best out of the muscle building side of things or the strength side of things. And then from a cardiovascular standpoint, again, you're probably not getting the best out of that. So you're better off if you want to improve your cardiovascular endurance, doing dedicated like cardio training for that is going to be key, where it's like you're doing some sort of either air bike, or you're doing running, you're doing the rower, you're doing a regular bike, you're doing swimming, whatever it is. Like, we want to make sure it's geared towards that. And again, there is some sort of structure to it. If you want to build the most muscle as possible, again, that's going to be some nutrition, and then it's also going to be your training as well too, right? So again, this leads me to, I just don't see the benefit of this style of training where it's like we go in and try to burn the most calories as possible. I just don't see, I don't know where it fits in. If you just like it and the way you feel, okay, then that's a different conversation. But again, we have to just understand the potential trade-offs of that, right? It's okay, now it's a time thing. So you want to get here, but you're doing this, right? So yeah, just my thoughts on that there. All right, the next one is going to be, or the last one's going to be, your lifestyle, recovery, nutrition sucks. Maybe your sleep sucks, or you have no focus on your nutrition, or maybe your stress management is poor. Either way, your training may be great, but if you neglect these things outside of the gym, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. So it's like you could be working hard, you could have great programming, but again, if your lifestyle sucks, you're not sleeping well, your stress is super high, your recovery sucks, your nutrition's off, like you're going to struggle and you're not going to add more muscle, right? And that's going to lead you to spinning your wheels. I would say for me, this was probably a big one in my 20s, where I was like, I really want to build muscle. I did that type of training. Again, I probably did all these. I made all these mistakes, but this is the one that I just neglected. And people always say, oh, hey, your recovery is important, but you just brush it off. You're like, yeah, whatever. But it really is. You could be working hard and you're not. That missing piece here is the focusing on these things outside of the gym. And it really does make a difference there. Takeaway, while lifting weights is a good start and it's keeping you from losing muscle. If you aren't happy with your results, you need to dive a bit deeper to see if you can improve certain aspects. And again, these would be the places I would start. And these are the most common mistakes I see people make. Again, if somebody comes to me, they're weight training and they're just not changing their body, these are the areas that we're going to focus on to really change your body here. So that is it for this episode. If you have any questions on this, let me know. If you have any questions on maybe which one you're struggling with the most, my free 30-minute strategy call is for you. The link to that is in the show notes. And that is it for this episode. And I will chat with you next time.